Everyone, welcome to the first video of investigative algebra. We're going to start today by just making sure we have the same vocabulary. There are some words that are just really important words for you to be able to know and then use in your communication as you're explaining your thinking. These are some words I expect you to use as you're going along. So the first word that we should have in common, and these are words you should already know, this should be a review for everybody, but just to make sure we're on the same page. The first word is variable. What's a variable, right? It's a letter. Right? Typically, it's a letter. It's typically Y or X, typically letter 2. But really what that letter is it's a symbol. It's a symbol that represents or takes the place of, represents a number. Right? So we're just going to have a math statement. We're going to have a math equation or a math expression, and we're going to take the number out, and we're just going to put a letter in its place. And so a lot of algebra is just trying to figure out what is that missing number that's supposed to be in that place right there and what that letter is taking place of. So a variable is a letter. It's a symbol that represents a number. An expression has no equal sign. An expression has no equal sign. And it can include variables. It typically has one or more variables. So it's things like 3x. So no equal sign, that's an expression. Or it might have something like 2x minus 4. That's an expression. It has no equal sign. Whereas an equation has an equal sign. So it's going to be a balancing. It's going to have a left side and a right side. It's going to balance. So if we take that 3x and we put equals 21, that becomes an equation, not an expression. So an equation has this equal sign right there. So it's a teeter-totter. It's a balance between the two things. So I like to think of it in terms of being like this. So it's going to be, it's a teeter-totter. Okay. Let's see. Alt-Z. There we go. New technology to learn. There's a lot of technology to learn, isn't there? Grab this. All right. The next word on our list is talking about some of the key words. So being able to translate words into mathematical expressions. So that's what a lot of story problems are, is just being able to take the words and then convert those into mathematical expressions. So if I say more than, if you read or hear the word more than, what mathematical operation do you need? What math thing are we going to do? If it's more than, we're going to add. If it's a difference, it's going to be subtract. If it's a product, we're going to multiply, but we never use X in algebra. We will use this dot. The dot is right there. So we're not going to use this. We're not going to use this, but typically we'll use a dot. It means we're going to multiply. So if you want to put the word multiply there to help you, that's going to be good. Sum is going to be adding. Quotient is divide. When you see or hear the word quotient, it's going to mean to divide, and you're going to write it as a fraction. So it's typically written like this. So you write it as a fraction. In algebra, quotients or division, we don't ever use that division sign, this little sign right here. We don't ever use that. That's never used in algebra. It's always written as a fraction. And less than is going to be subtraction. Okay, so some key words to kind of take a look at and to think about. If we move further down, let's do some practice. So take a minute and kind of jot down what you think that those are. If you were to read those words, how would you translate them into numbers, into mathematical operations? Take your best guess. Go ahead and pause this video and do that. All right, now let's check your work and see how you did. So 5 more than a number. Typically, you just read from left to right, just kind of work your way across. So I have 5. I know that more than means I'm going to add, and a number gives me n. So 5 more than a number looks like that. A product of a number and 5. It sounds like you want to do this. Product of a number and 5. Remember, if I put two things together, it means I'm going to multiply. I don't need to put the dot. I just simply write them next to each other. It means multiply. But this is not correct. The way that I wrote it right there is not correct. We always put the variable last and the number first. They need to be flipped around the other way around. So we're going to not do this. We'll erase that. There we go. We always write the number first and the variable second. Always in that order. And again, when they're right together, it means multiply. You do not need to write the dot. The sum of a number in 5 is going to be n plus 5. And the difference is going to be subtraction. The quotient, quotients we always write as a fraction. Do not use the division symbol. It always is a fraction in algebra. The number 5, I put a star by it because that's the one that typically is a little tricky for people. It's 5 less than a number. So 5 less than a number, you want to write it as 5 minus n. That's what your brain wants to do, but it's the opposite way around. Anytime you see less than, you have to think flip it. It's the opposite way. So it's actually going to look like n minus 5. That was a little bit trickier. If you hear less than, you think flip it. You have to do it the opposite direction from what you think you're going to be from there. All right, let's take a look at the back side of this paper. This paper is available in Kami. If you're familiar with Kami, you can download it and there and take notes. Kami's a really cool tool. If you're not familiar with it, we will talk more about it in future classes. They'll be able to get from me. But it's a tool where you can download worksheets and you can write on them digitally right on your computer, and you can submit it digitally. And we'll practice that more as we get going in class here. Right, 2 more things to take a look at. We have exponents and then absolute value. So 2 more things to take a look at. Exponents, there's 2 parts to an exponent. There's this number in the bottom here. That's called the base. And the number up, the little tiny number that sits up above, that's called the exponent. So base and exponent. The base is the number times itself. So whatever you see in the base, you're going to see that number multiplied by itself, by itself, by itself, by itself. So this is 3. So it's almost like a rubber stamp. If you can measure a rubber stamp, you're just going to stamp 3. So it's going to be like 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. You're just going to make a whole bunch of 3s. How many 3s are we going to make? That's the exponent. It's the number of times you're going to stamp it. It's the number you multiply it. Okay, it's a number you multiply the base. So if it's 3 times 2, that's going to become 3 times 3. There's going to be 2 3s. So your base is 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. How many times? The 2 tells you you're going to do it 2 times. So it becomes 3 times 3, which is 9. Okay, so if I had something like if I had 4 to the 3rd, that's what I was doing. I'm going to do 4s. I'm going to stamp 4, 4, 4, 4, 4. That's my base. It's a number times itself. It's going to be 4 times 4 times 4, 3 times. So I need 3 4. So it's 4 times 4 times 4. And I'd multiply that out and give my answer. Okay, now where you have to be careful is things like this. This negative 2 squared. So the difference between those two, we've got negative 2 squared and negative 2 squared. So one, the negative is in the inside, one, the negative is on the outside. So they're 2 very different things. Let's see if we can move that up to show you. So what's the difference? So negative 2, it's inside the parentheses. So you're going to take everything in the parentheses, and that's your base. That's your stamp. So you're going to do negative 2 and negative 2 2 times. So it's negative 2 times negative 2, which if you remember your integers, is 4. You will need to know how to add, subtract, multiply integers for this class for sure. We'll continue to work on that. That's a skill you're not good at. So that one, you're going to take the whole thing inside the parentheses, whatever's in parentheses, that's what you multiply. Negative 2 times negative 2 is 4. This one, the negative's not in the parentheses. What's in the parentheses is the 2. So it's 2 times 2. That's really what we're going to do, is 2 times 2, but that negative is outside of it. So the negative stays outside of it and becomes negative 4. So this one is 4. This one is negative 4. So the negative stays outside of it. That comes up every once in a while, and it's always a really tricky spot for people. So it's good to clarify that now. Make sure that's really clear in your notes. You don't want to forget that one. Right, and the last thing we're going to talk about is going to be opposites and absolute value. Let's do absolute value first. It's a little bit easier. Absolute value, easy for me to say, right? Absolute value is distance from 0. It's how far is a number from 0. So if I have my number line, I have 0 here. And let's say I want to know what is the absolute value of 4. That's the absolute value symbol, is these 2 lines right here. They're like football field goals. That means absolute value. Whenever you see that, it's like, oh, how far from 0 is that number? So if I have 4 is here, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. How far is that from 0? It's 4 spaces. So the absolute value of 4 is 4. What if I did absolute value of negative 4? I draw a number line. I have my 0. I have my negative 4. How far is negative 4 from 0? It's 4 away from 0. They're the same distance. 4 and negative 4 are the same distance from 0 from each other. So it's absolute value. Then opposites. Opposites are the same thing. Opposites are two numbers equal distance from 0. Equal distance from 0. Okay? And they add, super important part is they add to 0. That's going to help us zero things out a lot. That's why a lot of the algebra stuff works that it does, because we're zeroing things out all the time. We're doing the opposites. That's why it gets to work. So if I have my number line and I have, let's say, 2 in this direction and negative 2 in this direction, the 2 is 2 away, the negative 2 is 2 away. These are opposites of each other. 2 and negative 2 are opposites. And if I add them together, 2 plus negative 2, they equal 0, and they cancel each other out and they go away. All right? So that's vocabulary that we need to know. We talked about variables, expressions versus equations. We talked about some of the key words of how do you know when you're going to add, subtract, multiply, or divide. How do you know which operation you're going to do? We talked about exponents, the words base and exponent, and the difference between those, especially watching out for that negative in and outside of parentheses. And then we also talked about absolute value and opposites. So this video is here as a resource for you to watch a couple times if you'd like to. I also am including a list of videos of other supports. So if there's an area, if you take a look at that list and there's something you're like, I'm not that familiar with that, I highly recommend you go take a look at that video to build your skills you're going to need throughout this trimester. All right, off to a strong start. Go and do the practice and see how you do. Have a great day.